Good Thursday evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on Unscripted. We saw quite the range in temperatures today across northern Michigan. You might have been in an area that was in the 70s today, or you might have been somewhere where it was in the 40s. That's northern Michigan in the springtime, right? For you. So much fun. So what can we expect tomorrow? Temperatures leading more towards 70s, more 40s?
I think a little bit like today, 40s, 50s, and 60s. I don't think we'll get 70s tomorrow.
But another big range.
Yeah, another day of a bit of a range in temperatures tomorrow. The only thing, all of us tomorrow, though, look pretty cloudy. And I think everybody at some point is going to get a little bit of rain by the time Friday comes to an end. But I'm going to show the amounts. It doesn't look like a lot of rain. But if you have plans tomorrow, my son's got a baseball game. He's wondering maybe a little bit of rain. So we'll look at that and what should be a pretty nice weekend coming up, Maya, and we'll take a look at those temperatures.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. Our top story tonight takes us to Crawford County, where it was a big day for Saab and for economic development there, as Saab broke ground this afternoon in its new munitions facility in Crawford County. You're seeing video of the groundbreaking right now. The 140,000 square foot facility is being built in the Grayling Industrial Park. Now, some of the people who were there for the groundbreaking include Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the 1st District Congressman Jack Bergman, and Saab CEO Eric Smith. Let's hear from some of them.
This one's really special. It's at a really important point in time for our country and for the world. And I think we're going to be able to bring some really important capability to this region and to the nation from a national defense perspective.
Sometimes, you do the work and, it takes a little while before you see the fruit of your labor. But this is something that makes so much sense for our economy, for this community. And I think for Michigan broadly, we are growing our defense sector.
And Saab intends to have the facility ready for production by 2026. It's expected to create about 70 jobs. Now, this is Saab's 10th munitions facility built in the United States. Moving on to Grand Traverse County. Earlier this month, county officials announced that AmeriCorps' National Civilian Community Corps would volunteer to clean up Camp Greilich. But just last week, AmeriCorps program was cut by the Trump administration. Today, our Allie Baxter spoke with the Parks and Recreation Director about the impact of losing these volunteers.
Sorry, the bumpy road here.
Since Grand Traverse County's purchase of the Camp Greilich property, Parks Director John Chase and his team have been working to get areas of the park back open.
We've got some of the bench seating that needs to be replaced, so we would have worked on that. Some of the fencing, you can see there's fencing that was knocked down by trees.
And they were going to get a little extra help this summer. AmeriCorps' National Civilian Community Corps program had plans to send 12 young adults for 2,800 hours of volunteer labor. The county would provide housing, and in turn, the crew would pick up new skills.
And the crew that we were receiving was called Cedar 4, and they were coming from an engagement in Minnesota, up in northern Minnesota, where they were actually doing taxes for low-income individuals.
But last week, the volunteer program was cut by the Trump administration.
So we actually found out through regular news channels and social media and such. And then we contacted AmeriCorps and they said, yeah, the news is true that we no longer have the crew. We were really disappointed when we found out that the crew wasn't going to be coming here. So we were excited for them and the skills that they would have gained.
The plan was for the crew to jump in and help with the trail development.
So one of the other things that the AmeriCorps crew was going to do for us was to help reinvigorate the disc golf course. So the pads for the disc golf course right now are wooden pads with AstroTurf on top of the pad. And we wanted to replace that with a more solid surface, a concrete surface.
And while Chase says it's not the end of the world to not have the crew anymore, it'll slow down progress at the park until they can find more volunteers to help get back on schedule.
Currently putting a plan together that would help us identify how can we pivot from the AmeriCorps crew and how can we use some of the local community groups that are already supporting us in many ways to be able to get the trails open as well as taking a look at other amenities.
Because as Chase explains, the county wants this park to be used by the public as soon as possible so that more memories can continue to be made here.
Is that real?
In Grand Traverse County.
I think it is, yes. So his name is George.
Allie
One of the
Baxter.
traditions, I guess, from the Scouts is that they would give George a kiss.
UpNorthLive News.
Well, Allie is joining us live now from the Content Center. And Allie, I got to ask, did you give George a kiss while you were there?
No, and he's actually even a little higher up on the wall, Maya. So one of the questions I even asked John was that how do you get to the moose? You have to jump to even like get to him, and I can't even reach him. So
form like a
that's
human
choice.
pyramid or something.
Yeah, he's got a little dust on him now too, so I don't know if I would pucker up for the moose.
Well, okay, so this is a piece of property that has a lot of history in Grand Traverse County. So now they're hoping to kind of bring it back to life and welcome the public back to the area. So since they don't have these volunteers, we heard John Chase say they're going to be looking for just other community partners to kind of step up and volunteer. Is there a set plan of what the future looks like?
Yeah, so right now, I think just because they're still kind of working out the different details of, okay, we thought maybe some of these volunteers would be coming here to do a lot more of this manual labor, but now they're not anymore. It's really kind of a community call out to some of these organizations that they're already working with. They're working with Tart Trails, the Land Conservancy, and just a lot of those organizations that we already think of that are so involved in our parks and recreation here. They're kind of putting a call out to them saying, hey, is there any way that you have certain members who would want to come back and maybe volunteer for one day and maybe next week volunteer another day just to help us do very specific things as part of their phase one is really addressing the trails there. They want at least the trails, if anything, to be used. It takes a lot longer to go in and do maintenance on some of those buildings and bring them up to code. But they said what they can do right now to get the public back into the park is address those trails first.
Do they have a goal of when they're hoping to get those trails ready to go to welcome community members again?
I want to say in the past, they have talked about maybe like the end, like a fall 2025, like just trying to do a lot of that trail work this summer to make sure at first, like it is like safe trails, that there are trails that connect back, that they can put signage out there as well. And as he was explaining it to me, this doesn't exactly like make it so that portion can never open again. It just kind of slows down their progress a little bit. So maybe there's kind of a delay there. They said it just really depends on who they can reach out to, how many volunteers they can now get back into the park to make this happen. And actually, one of the things that him and I talked about was that actually in the Northern Michigan area, there's a lot of alumni of AmeriCorps. So in reaching out to them, maybe seeing if, hey, do you want to perhaps get in touch with your roots again and come back out and do some of that volunteer service that you reflect and think about so fondly in your youth?
Right. And we heard Chase say that losing these AmeriCorps volunteers is not the end of the world, but obviously it came as a bit of a shock considering he found out from other outlets, not even directly from AmeriCorps.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said, you know, that's kind of been the case with a lot of different funding situations right now where I know we've talked to different nonprofits about just some of the cuts that have been happening within the Trump administration and how, you know, do we need to proceed forward? Do we know if we're going to get this funding or not? And so that was Chase's question as well was, is this kind of like a rumor cut or is this for real? And he went straight to AmeriCorps and they said, yeah, unfortunately, that crew that was coming from northern Minnesota is not going to be making that stop in northern Michigan anymore.
Are there any other AmeriCorps groups that were supposed to come to northern Michigan that now won't be coming anymore that you know of?
I'm not sure. That is something I had reached out about just to the Michigan AmeriCorps to see if there were any other programs up here that were affected. I know this program specifically, the NCCC, it is more young adults, like 18 to 26, who take about 10 months and then they go on different engagements, as they call it, around the country. And honestly, even Chase said they had to prepare already for the fact that maybe this crew wasn't coming here because their first priority is actually something I didn't realize. Their first priority is go to national disaster areas. So he said they had already kind of prepared, like if there's any kind of crazy weather that had happened, that they may lose that crew to a different area.
That does make sense. All right, Allie, in about 30 seconds, anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, I would just say it was really cool. I've never been out to the Camp Greilich property before. I think it's definitely going to be a big task. So hoping that they are able to get some volunteers in there. And if you are interested in volunteering, Chase says to please reach out to him and see how we can help get the park back up.
All right, Allie, thank you so much. We are moving on to our next story now. Chances are, if you are dealing with any sort of medical diagnosis, you may have had to travel downstate quite a bit. But next month, an effort is underway to launch a new program where it could help some people get to stay in the area for their treatment instead of having to travel downstate. Mark Shalat has more details.
so wonderful to be able to see patients get their life back.
As a nurse and a transplant service liaison at Trinity Health Grand Rapids, Jill Wagner's seen the difference a kidney transplant can have on those fortunate enough to get one.
Their transplant patients no longer need dialysis. So they're able to travel, they're able to get back to work, live their life, and just have the flexibility and time to enjoy life again, which is really difficult to do when you're on dialysis.
But to get to that point of a transplant, as you might expect, patients have a lot of medical appointments prior to surgery.
That first pre-transplant evaluation appointment is where they meet with several members of our team for mostly education.
With Trinity Grand Rapids being the only kidney transplant center serving adults in West Michigan, appointments like that mean a lot of driving for our patients up north.
We have a patient who just recently received a transplant who was driving 9 hours one way.
It's a long drive to get to GR for anyone, let alone someone that already has existing medical obligations.
Most patients are doing dialysis 3 times a week, so having to travel long distance on that one day off that you have is very difficult.
Trinity realized that and is making a move of sorts to help patients up north get to spend a little less time traveling down south.
Even just being able to offer, Traverse City as a hub expands our offering to patients in all of northern Michigan.
Trinity has announced that on May 8th, they will begin to offer pre-transplant appointments here in Traverse City at Munson's Kidney and Hypertension Clinic. In a statement provided to UpNorthLive, Munson explained, quote, Munson Healthcare continues to support efforts to expand access to the Northern Michigan communities we serve, and we're pleased to see another entity entering the region to provide a service that patients would otherwise have to leave the area to receive.
By us bringing our team to the patients in Traverse City and in northern Michigan, it's eliminating a visit to Grand Rapids for them and hopefully, ideally, making transplant a little bit easier.
Kidney transplants can save lives and save time for patients who no longer need to be on dialysis. This move can save them a little time and a lot of travel in order to get to that point.
Our goal is to eliminate the number of times patients would need to come to Grand Rapids before kidney transplant.
That was Mark Gillette reporting. All right, this next story will certainly dive a little deeper during sports, but we have to talk about the start of the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Check it out. This was a little earlier before all of the crowds of thousands and thousands of people got there. The first round starts tonight at 8 o'clock. The Tennessee Titans have the first pick. The Lions have 7 picks total in the draft. Their first pick in round 1 will be the 28th pick. So let's take a look at our question of the day. We know Brad Holmes probably already has maybe some idea of what he's cooking up for this new addition to the team. But what do you think the Lions should focus on when it comes to the draft? Should they focus on their defense, their offense, special teams? You can scan the QR code on your screen right now to vote. And then if you also want to leave a comment of something a little more specific, like a specific position that you think the Lions should go for, especially in that first round, we will be sure to take a look at those a little later. But right now, it looks like 78% of voters say the Lions should be focused on defense. As I mentioned, we will keep an eye on those live results and also some of the comments towards the end of the show. And we'll also touch base with Harrison Beebe, and he'll have much more of what we can expect the Lions to do in the draft. But for now, we are going to take a quick commercial break. But right on the other side of this break, Joe will have your forecast for our Friday and a look ahead to the weekend. Stay with us.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.
Well, the weather has been very interesting really this entire week. It seems like every day is just a little bit different. Today, the big story was that crazy temperature range between the 40s and the 70s, depending on where you are in northern Michigan. What do you think the craziest thsome about tomorrow's forecast could be, Joe?
Probably something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we also have some rain coming in tomorrow, especially in the afternoon and evening. For some spots, it's not going to be where it's going to be gushing down the street, but we'll have a little bit of rain coming in. Cadillac was one of those warm spots, though. It's still 64 degrees, some blue sky overhead. Actually, a nice afternoon there, north breeze, but it is rather pleasant. But let's take a look at our temperatures elsewhere and what a range we have. Houghton Lake is at 70. You did reach 70 earlier at Grayling. And then you jump up to Petoskey, it's 41. Traverse City is only 51. And so there's a big sharp temperature contrast across the area. Rogers City in the 40s, Newberry, Drummond Island, Sault Ste. Marie, chilly too at 42. If you're looking for some warmer weather besides the 70s, look downstate. It's 82 right now at Flint. And Detroit's in the 80s, along with Lansing. You can see the cities there, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo as well. We have a frontal boundary kind of dragged out off to the south of us tonight, or stalled out. And that whole complex is going to pass south of us. But if you look up into Minnesota, that area, there is some rain, and that is going to head toward us. Northern Iowa, that rain you see there around Minneapolis, will track toward northern Michigan. Now, we have had a few showers in our area this evening, right there. I don't think we're going to get much more than this tonight, at least for the first half of the night, but a little bit of rain right now from Charlevoix County, Emmett, parts of Sheboygan, Presque Isle counties, seeing a few showers currently. Those will move on, and then tomorrow morning, rain arrives in the UP, a few showers in the lower peninsula, and then the bulk of the rain will be after midday, moving from west to east across the area, right there. So again, we're kind of going back and forth here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, late rain. That'll wind down, and then we head into Saturday. And just in time for the weekend, dry weather returns. It may take a while to break up the clouds Saturday. It could still be cloudy around noon. And then sunshine returns by mid to late afternoon. And then we'll get a nice day in here on Sunday, too. So the weekend does look dry, with temperatures in the upper 40s to mid 50s on Saturday. Sunday, partly cloudy, warmer, upper 50s to mid 60s on Sunday. And if you're attending the National Trout Festival, one of the first big festivals of the season here in northern Michigan, upper 50s tomorrow with that chance for showers, a little bit of afternoon rain there. But Kalkaska is looking at 55 on Saturday, morning clouds, some afternoon sunshine. And then Sunday, mostly sunny. What a nice day Sunday, too. The weekend looks fabulous with mid 60s there in Kalkaska. There's our extended forecast. Dry Saturday and Sunday, a little warmer Sunday. Then we warm back up. Look at the highs on Monday, 63 and 73. And then right now, a cold front comes in. It looks like Monday night with some showers and storms. There could be some lingering showers on Tuesday. And then we cool back down again Wednesday, upper 40s and mid 50s. So tomorrow, Maya, a little bit of rain. I think most of that will be in the afternoon and evening, but then that heads out of here and we should get a pretty nice weekend in.
Awesome. Something to look forward to. Thanks so much, Joe. Let's take another quick break, but we have a whole lot to talk about in sports with Harrison Beebe right around the corner. Don't go anywhere just yet. That's next. Busy night for sports fans across Michigan and really the entire country. Of course, in just a couple of minutes, the Pistons and the Knicks will tip off at Little Caesars Arena for Game 3 in the playoff series. And then in just about an hour, the NFL draft gets underway. Let's bring in sports director Harrison Beebe. And Harrison, our question today for Unscripted is, what do you think the Lions should focus on for the draft? What area of play? So what do you think Brad Holmes is going to do?
Well, that's kind of the beauty of being later in the draft. Obviously, you don't get the chance to take one of the top name players in the field, or you don't think you do, unless they kind of fall that far. I guess then that's his luxury of being able to grab a guy who's kind of sunk down draft boards to him, or to really go with the best position that they need and the best guy available at that best position. Really gives them a lot of opportunity. And with the team they have, they're not like 2 or 3 years ago in need of a guy to reshape the franchise like they were in those first few drafts under Holmes. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at the big board of the picks that Brad Holmes has made in the first round since he has taken over the job, and pretty effective in the first round. I'd say all 6 guys are starters. I mean, who's the worst guy in that group right now, Maya? You maybe say Terry Arnold, last year's first overall pick, and that's only because his rookie year was good, but maybe didn't jump off the page like the rest of those guys. But he's got plenty more years to come. He's just had 1 year in the league under his belt. So Holmes has shown he's got the scouting down. He is very good at figuring out which one of these guys are going to fit the culture that the Lions have. And at the 28th pick, you have a feeling like they're going to go with someone similar to that position, whatever that be. I personally would always lean defense, especially knowing how good this offense already is. You really don't need a lot of changes to that. You can always use a little more depth on the defense, as we saw last year with all the injuries that took place. So we'll find out. The first pick for the Lions will probably be pretty late in the evening. You'll have to stay up late for that one. Probably close to the 11:30 midnight time frame based on the time allotted for first round picks. But should be another productive weekend for GM Brad Holmes.
Yeah, what's not as late is the Pistons-Knicks game tipping off in just about 5 minutes.
Yep.
What are you thinking about that one?
First playoff game since 2000. Well, first playoff atmosphere since 2008, where it's going to feel like they have a real chance to win. I know the 2016 playoff team had a lot of good vibes and excitement to it, but they lost to a LeBron James Cavs team that ended up winning the NBA title. I don't think this Knicks team is going to do that. So I'd be shocked if they don't at least take one of these games here in the next 2 at Little Caesars Arena and force a best of 3 in games 5 through 7.
I definitely think they can, just based on the first 2 games. They seem like the better team, in my opinion, but we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks so much, Harrison. We do have to take another break, but we will check in with those live results for our question of the day related to the draft coming up next.
Salon services are furnished by Epiphany Advanced Academy in East Acme.
It is draft night in Green Bay. As you can see, we're taking a live look there over Lambeau Field. Folks getting ready for the kickoff. And now we're taking a live look at our question of the day. Lions have the 28th pick in the first round. So what do you think the Lions should focus on in the draft? As you can see, most people are saying defense. 78%, 15% say offense, 8% say special teams. Over on Facebook, running out of time, so I can only read one comment. Al says defense, 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 and O-line. Defense wins championships. I agree, and we do have one of the best O-lines in the league already, so I think we should focus on defense. All right, thanks so much for joining us on Unscripted. Have a great night. We'll see you back here at 11.